Hello and welcome to today's video. So this time we're going to be having a look at my vintage Corgi book collection. Now Corgi were one of those publishers that shot up in the 1950s, and I've picked their books up as and when I've found them. I've not really actively gone out of my way to collect them per se, but being a paperback collector, you're bound to come across some vintage Corgi books, and I do really like them. They've usually got fantastic cover artwork. They're smaller format than the traditional paperback, a bit more like a traditional American pocketbook, but they've got some great authors and some great titles, which we'll see today. So that will be the subject of today's video. So sit back, relax, and let's get to it. Okay then, so we're starting our look at these beautiful Corgi paperbacks. Now, I'm going to start off with my run of Oggy Giants, and I've only got about, 50 or so books in total in my entire vintage Corgi collection. But as I said at the start, these are ones that have just sort of come my way when I've been looking for other books, really. This is fantastic. It's a book on Second World War escapes, a stolen journey. It's not a classic, it's not like Colditz or anything like that, or The Great Escape, but I do like the way that they've got the chap's escape route on the back there, which is quite nice. I have to say they've made him look a bit like David Niven, which was a big movie star at the time, but it's not him. So yeah, quite an interesting one to start off, and they really are quite something, these giants, and you hardly ever see them. I mean, as I said, I don't go out of my way to find them. You just don't see them very often. These were dated 1954, this is 1955. I mean, it's that sort of period. This is when Corgi first started in the UK, and that was an era when there was a lot of Second World War memoirs getting published. And this is no different. This is another one from 1975. It's not a first edition. Not all of these are first. Most of them are, but not all of them. Looking at the Japanese army in Malaya. A bit of a classic, this one, To Hell and Back. This is G, and they are all numbered there. It says G190. And the Giants were initially 3 and 6pence. And a bit like Pan, that's how the different series were organised, was by the price. This one was actually a movie tie-in rather, to the movie To Hell and Back. Universal picture there. It's quite nice. This is by John Dixon Carr, the crime author, and it's called The Bride of Newgate, and it's a historical mystery, so sort of set in the 17th century by the look of it. Quite an interesting one from John Dixon Carr, not his usual fare. White Coolie. So this is we've seen these before. This one illustrated by Ronald Searle, who himself was a prisoner of the Japanese, I believe. And this is that exact subject, British prisoners under captivity with the Japanese army, and they always have 4 years in hell. The book contains striking illustrations by Ronald Searle, who, like the author, underwent the harrowing experience of captivity in the Far East. So there we are, absolutely fantastic, eh? Let's just see if we can find any of those illustrations. I think they're just little simple pencil ones from memory. There was one there. I did actually go to an exhibition of Ronald Searle. There we are. Yeah, I've actually seen some of the originals of these in the London Cartoon Museum. Very sort of moving. That's White Coolie. That's a really, really nice Corgi giant. Next one we got is that's over here. There's quite a lot of these. So Tim Carew, and that's all this and a medal too. It's another war-related one. Big, thick books. These I quite like the almost comic book style flashes on the back there. And there were, as I said, there were quite a lot of these sort of war-related books published at this time. This is a great one. I actually collect Churchill myself, not just in paperback, although I've got most of the paperback editions, but I also collect him in first edition hardback. He's a notoriously difficult author to collect for, but I really like his stuff, and I'm a real fan of Churchill. This is a compilation of his war speeches. There were 7 volumes of speeches in all in hardback, and this is like a best of in paperback. And yeah, there's some really great speeches in there from Churchill. G429 then, another war one again, which is Stuka Pilot, Hans Ulrich Rudel, 4 by Douglas Bader. Rudel's score. Pretty good. I mean, as I said, a lot of these are war related, but it's just a reflection of what was being published at that time, more than anything. And it was a period of, you know, reflection after the Second World War. 443 then, so this is our first sort of genre one, really, apart from the odd crime one there. And this is a nice sci-fi one from another one of my favourite authors when I was growing up, especially, and that was Arthur C. Clarke. City and the Stars, one of his classics. I really like Arthur C. Clarke. When I've read interviews with him and seen footage of interviews with him, it seems such a nice guy. Published 1957, this particular one. I first ever heard of him, of course, in that TV series, Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World, if you ever remember that one. 468 then is The Willing Flesh, the savagely powerful novel of the death throes of the German Wehrmacht. What a cover there as well. Quite tough. Big thick books, these, you know, these Corgi Giants, and I think it makes them difficult to find in nice grade to begin with, and yeah, quite collectible because of that. This next one's perhaps my best, and probably my most valuable Corgi Giant, and it's this one by Ivan Hunter, aka Ed McBain, and a few other pseudonyms. What a great cover. It's got, I think the name is Oliver Brabbins, possibly, as the cover artist. He's got a lot of key points here. So we've got, this is the one that came after Blackboard Jungle. So the searing novel of drug addicts by the order of the Blackboard Jungle. It's got a chap there holding a syringe. On the back, heroin. Nice copy of that one. It's a rare old Corgi paperback that I'm very pleased to have it in my collection. I do like Ed McBain, and I any of his pseudonyms I also pick up as well, and I was very pleased when I came across that particular one. So that was, yeah, next is number 613, Zero, the story of the Japanese Air Force, 1937 to 1945. Bit of a worn old copy of that one, but I don't mind, because as I said, a lot of these I've not, you know, deliberately gone out of my way to get any of them. I'm glad to get them, and I picked them up when they've come my way. Another huge one here, 775, The Forsaken Army. This one was 5 shillings, and it's the mighty novel of Stalingrad. Henrik Gerlach, who survived Stalingrad. So amazing. That was a massive siege, wasn't it? The Siege of Stalingrad. Got this one, so number 800, The Knights of Bushido, a short history of Japanese war crimes by Lord Russell of Liverpool, who also wrote a couple of books for Pan. There's his other one, the companion volume, which is The Scourge of the Swastika, which we'll see in a moment. So that's actually a really nice copy of that particular one. It's a reprint, but it's the reprint from 1960. Still fits in with the series, and here is that that earlier book that was mentioned, and this is Nazi War Crimes by the same author. As I said, he did write for Pan Books as well. And this was heavily reprinted. This is from 1962. That's gone through about 10 printings, that particular one. Last few G's now, last couple, so these are a bit thinner now, but they still class as a giant because they've got the 3 and 6 price, you see. This one's called Abandoned Ship. No one knew that the USS Indianapolis had sunk. No one except the desperate, panic-stricken survivors. So this is one of those ones lost at sea, waiting to be picked up and survived. 1960, and rescued rather. And this is the last in the Giant series. It's another Arthur C. Clarke, and this is a reprint. Oh, well, this is called This is the City and the Stars again, but it's a reprint with a different jacket to the one earlier. So a bit like Digit, they merely republished this one with a new jacket. So it's probably, yeah, we've got the first one we saw down there was 1957, and this one is the 1960 edition, but with a completely different jacket and a different catalogue number as well. So that's all my Giants. I'm just going to pause there. I'm going to get my next lot organised. Okay, so the next one then are a couple that were for juniors, and these weren't Corgi, but they're Scotty. You see the little Scotty dog in the corner there? And I've just got a couple of these. They're real curiosities, but I don't think there's many in the series, maybe 30 or 40, but I've just got a couple. So here's the first one, which is a Biggles book, Captain W.E. Johns. Biggles follows on. Air Detective Bigglesworth flies into his greatest adventure. Great cover on that one as well. Looks really, really nice. That's J number 2. And then I've got another one, which is this one. This is the Scotty Book of Inventions. So it's like a non-fiction book aimed at the youngsters. Really good fun, these, you know. I noticed it Transworld. So Transworld were the owners of Corgi, and still around today. Published under the Corgi imprint. Now the next ones we're going to look at are the T series. So these were also 2 shillings, and this is based on the size again. So we're back into the mid-50s, I believe, with these. So 1950, this came out in 53, but this is the 1954 reprint. This is T19, Brave Company. This is T39, which is Spearhead, another of these war-related titles. A novel of the Commandos by the author of Immortal Sergeant. Another early Arthur C. Clarke. This is T43. This is The Sands of Mars. Really, really beautiful cover. I wish I had a better copy of this. I believe it's a first edition. Let's have a look here. Yeah, Corgi edition 1954. I mean, really, really nice high-grade ones are those, like 10 to 15 pounds. This is just a filler by all means, but how good is that? It just looks great, doesn't it? A real mint, fresh, bright copy of that would be lovely. But alas, that's the only one I've got. Andrew Milbourne, Lease of Life. Story of courage and heroism in the face of overwhelming odds. Paratrooper. John Brophy, Target Island. A novel of heroic Malta. I'll tell you what, there really was no aspect of the Second World War that was not covered in vintage paperback in some form, was there? I mean, absolutely everything got looked at. Patrol, another great cover. That I wonder who did that one. It looks a bit like a PEF, but I don't think it is. Fred Majalny, The Eeriest of Half-Worlds. Nice copy of that one. It's nice when they do turn up in nice knit, because what I found with these Corgi books is a lot of them just don't seem to have survived in any great condition. So I think these are quite tough to find in nice knit. This one is T148, The Sideshow, Gerald Bell. This is once again a later one, which is in much better condition than most that we've seen. So that's it for the T series. I've just got the S series to show you now, and those books are a lot thinner, and I shall just get those ready now. So here we go with the first of my S series, and this is a book by the footballer Stanley Matthews. I mean, he was absolutely massive in the 1950s, and this is what they call a Corgi special. It's illustrated, it's 2 and 6, absolutely great likeness of Stanley Matthews there. It's got a photo insert in the middle. There he is with Montgomery of Alamein. But nice one that. Certainly of interest to football fans. There's the Wembley in the background there. A nice one that. That's the Stanley for feet first again. Next one's 127, which is Test Pilot. Another one that's listed as a Corgi special. Neville Duke. Another interesting little title. I flew for the Fuhrer. Heinz Knock. And this is also listed as a Corgi special. Maybe they were all Corgi specials, but they were certainly the cheaper end of the market. This one's quite interesting. So, Givaro, among the head shrinkers of the Amazon. Look at that. Complete and unabridged. Illustrated. Oh dear. I guess we better not look at that too much, but there we are. Head shrinkers, eh? Blimmin' heck. 1956, that one. None But the Brave. The story of Leif Larsen. A Richards cover, that one. Desperate Voyage. One of the sea books I shall never forget. John Caldwell. So it says. I noticed they've dropped the Corgi Special moniker on these now. Dagger Before Me, S493. A dynamic novel of skullduggery and intrigue in the Middle East. Dagger Before Me. Oliver Brabbins, yeah, that's the name of the artist who was on some of those earlier books, wasn't it? So, Kon-Tiki Expedition. So I really like the books of Thor Hardell. This one's great. My all-time favourite of his is Aku Aku, which is when he goes to Easter Island in the early 1950s. Absolutely, if you've never read that one and you're at all curious about Easter Island, that's the book to read. It's great. This was his earlier expedition though, and once again, absolutely fantastic. I really like the Thor Hardell books, and this is a nice addition to my my collection. It's not a first, it's 1960, but I do have the Thor Hardell books in hardback first. James Michener, that name may ring a bell, a Pulitzer Prize winning novelist, and this is his eyewitness story of the fighting people of Hungary, the Bridge of Andal. So this is by quite a big name, James Michener. This is sci-fi. Charles Eric Maine, master of science fiction. He was catapulted out of his own time into a chain of wondrous futures. Oh, there you go. A chain, no doubt. No less. This is great. This is Isaac Asimov, Pebble in the Sky. This is S583. Not the greatest of covers, but it is another Asimov, and I do love those. This is a Corgi First from 1958. And really nice to have that. I very much enjoy Asimov. Another sci-fi one. This one's quite common. Rex Squad. I've seen a couple of copies of this. No Man Friday. More sci-fi. Richard Matheson. So that's a author you may recognise from I Am Legend. This is a sci-fi on the shores of space. It's a bit of a beaten up old copy, this one. However, I'm just glad to have one. It's a first, 1958, but very, very worn old copy, just for reading. Walter Lord, author again of A Night to Remember. This time he tells the story of Pearl Harbor in Day of Infamy. Yeah, A Night to Remember, that was also published as a Corgi, but it's not one I've got. But there you go. It's one of those things. 1959. Arthur C. Clarke again. A few of his today, haven't we? Expedition to Earth. Corgi were obviously the Arthur C. Clarke publisher, and they still were up until the 90s. This is the first from 1959. Lovely copy of that one. Shame my my other early one wasn't. The Sands of Mars wasn't in such lovely condition. Silent Victory. Invasion of Britain, 1940. Another wartime related one. Just a few to go now. So this is Yesterday's Enemy, S733. Now this is a movie tie-in to the Hammer film, a Hammer War film, called Yesterday's Enemy. Really, really good Hammer movie if you've never seen it. Basically, these guys are, I think they're in Burma, and they're in the middle of, they're in Burma, yeah, and they're stuck in the middle of a forest. And basically the enemy are closing in around them, and one by one they're getting picked off. It is really, really tense. It's just darn good, that. A really good Hammer film. Another really great one, Louis L'Amour first. This is a British Louis L'Amour. I really, the Louis L'Amours that I've read, I wouldn't say I'm his biggest fan, but I have to say, since I've been getting into Westerns recently, that the few I have read have actually been all right. I just don't think I've been reading them in the right order. But anyway, this is one of his early ones. It is a first edition, British one from 1959. There's just a couple of previous titles listed. A nice copy of that one to boot. Yeah, I like Louis L'Amour, and that one is listed as a Corgi Western. Next we've got Stranger in Gala, A Tree, a Rope and a Dead Man. This was the Outback and they called it Justice. Well, don't know much about this one at all. S883. Now, another great one, just a couple to go now. So here is Richard Matheson's I Am Legend. Some might say his most famous, well, it is his most famous work, but I know he did lots of other things. And this is actually quite a worn old dirty copy, really. And it's first published in Corgi in 1956, so this is the reissue of it. It will be the first with that particular number. Nice cover, that one. But even this copy is really hammered, isn't it? I do have a better copy of the book. Then the final Corgi book we have today is this one by Frederick Brown, Space on My Hands, which is quite a nice sort of B-movie style from the period, really. Spaceship on the front there. This was number 1077. And this one's from, once again, 1953. I do have Corgi books, up into throughout the 60s, but I've not bothered showing those because I think it's just these early ones that are the most interesting, and these are the ones I've got the best sort of a collection of. But as I said, I've not gone out of my way to get these, but over the years, these are the ones that have sort of fallen into the collection one way or another in job lots and things like that. And for one reason or another, I've decided to keep them. So I hope you did enjoy looking through that Corgi collection. If you have enjoyed it, do please give the video a thumbs up. Do please consider subscribing for regular vintage paperback content, and I shall look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye.